County. And we'll do the presentation on the slides. So I recently attended a training where the instructor introduced himself, and he said that he said, I'm here by assignment, and my assignment is to speak to you, and your assignment is to listen to me. And he said, my goal is to finish my assignment before you finish your assignment. I thought that was funny. And I hope that you'll bear with me as I speak about the Office of Constable first. I'm grateful for the opportunity to serve as the elected constable. I cover this area all the way north to the county line, south to El Mirage, and then west to the county line, which is Gladden, Gila area, way past Wickenburg, about 40 minutes past Wickenburg. My name is Constable Scott Blake. The state of Arizona is divided up by counties, and each county is subdivided into justice precincts. Each precinct, voters elect a constable and a justice of peace to a 4-year term. The justice of peace is the judicial branch of the government. The constable is the executive branch of the government, or the enforcement branch. Arizona constables have been an important part of Arizona history since the territorial days. Both Wyatt and Virgil Earp served as constables in Prescott before they went on to become lawmen in Tombstone. And you know them from the famous OK Corral shootout. One of Arizona's most respected governors, Wesley Bolin, was an elected constable. He went on to serve as Secretary of State, a Justice of the Peace, and then as the governor. And then Wesley Bolin Plaza is named after him in Phoenix. The famous gunslinger William H. Bonney, better known as Billy the Kid, was arrested by a constable for horse theft. And if you have any questions at the end, just feel free to ask. A brief history of my resume is in 1988, I worked 10 to 12 hours a day, providing community service and leading others in community service. I was a trainer, a district leader, a zone leader, and later became an assistant to the president. After this, I earned an electrical degree here in Arizona, which I did nothing with. I worked for about 3 months for somebody. At that same time, I was buying rental properties, and I cleaned them up, fixed them up, and rent them out. And so the economy was just in the toilet with housing. And I learned that I either had to become a plumber or a carpet cleaner. And the only thing I wanted to know about plumbing was poop rolls downhill. So I started a carpet cleaning business. I grew this from one truck mount, one portable unit that I loaded in out the back of my Jeep Cherokee, to 6 trucks, 5 employees, and 1 office manager. I also sold franchises all over the United States while building this up. I owned it for 30 years, and about 3 months ago, I sold it to the first employee that I hired. As a Boy Scout, while earning the rank of Eagle Scout, I learned that community and community service for me was going to play a huge role in my life. I started volunteering with the City of Surprise. They call this Surprise Day of Service. Just as a volunteer, that was about 20 years ago. They had us painting houses or doing landscaping. And because I showed up every time they had one of these, eventually they made me a house captain, so I was in charge of that house. And later I became a block captain, so I was in charge of all the work being done on the block. And it's been a fantastic experience. Just recently, my 10-year-old son and I went to St. Mary's Food Bank and worked for about 4 hours, unpacking boxes, sorting them, and then getting them ready for other people to come and pick them to be distributed to people who do that. I also teach this class of civilian response to active shooters. So if you like this, brag about it. If you don't, complain to me. But if you want this taught to a group that you might have, like at church or some other group that you belong to, I am more than happy to present there. as a constable, I'm an elected peace officer like the sheriff. I am tasked with serving documents that a judge has signed. The sheriff takes care of the deputies and the jails. That's his primary job. Constables are tasked with warrants, asset seizures, evictions, and orders of protection. So if we show up to your house, we're either taking you from the property or taking something from you. Communication is my number one tool. I wear a lot of tools. I have a gun, I have a taser, I have a collapsible baton. Communication is number one. I seize assets with writs of replevin and writs of execution. Many people ask me what's the smallest item I've ever seized, and that would be a diamond ring. The largest item I've ever seized, and I had to seize it in place, was a barn. We put this ugly red sticker on there that basically says I'm in control of that asset. Before I seize any asset, and again, I'm seizing that asset because they owe money on a judgment. They owe somebody money, and they have filed with the court that says, I want that money and I want you to be able to go and take that asset. And so I always ask them, do you have the money to pay this judgment? And the answer's always been no. And so I tell them that I'm going to seize the asset, whatever it is, and that I will allow them 72 hours before I start to market the fact that I have that, and then it has to be sold at the sheriff's auction. It's something that moves pretty quick. After 7 years, I was elected 7 years ago. So after 7 years, I'm 100% of every asset seizure I was asked to go after. So imagine you've got to knock on somebody's door and say, I'm here to take your sofa, your car, your motorcycle, your most prized possession, and sell it. But I have never sold a single asset at the sheriff's auction because I allow them at 72 hours. Every single person has come up with the money to pay the asset every time. So, and I teach a class on this, so I tell them that I'm really good up to this point, but after the sheriff's auction, I have to have another constable take over because I've never done one. So, 7 years ago, after I was elected, I went to Maricopa County's Sheriff's Office Academy. I went through the academy. That everything a constable is tasked with. So then Sheriff Arpaio allowed all the constables to basically fast track it through the academy. So I would skip everything that didn't apply to a constable. If it was criminal, we didn't need it. If it was civil, we did. If it had to involve, weapons, handguns, taser, whatever it was, then we went through that full class and then jumped ahead. After my successful completion, I was so impressed with the way that Maricopa County is organized, especially for the deputies. I became a specialist instructor with Easy Post certifies police officers and sheriff's deputies in Arizona. In January of this year, let me back up. I served in the organization of the Arizona Constables Association. 4 months after my election, I was asked to join their board and to serve there. About 6 months later, I was elected as the secretary. I did that for 2 years. I served 4 years as the vice president. And then in January of this year, I was elected to be the president of the Arizona Constables Association. Along the way, I wrote all of the grants for our training and negotiated with hotels to get all 72 constables in there and some clerks. Sometimes sheriffs attend, sometimes sheriff's deputies who only do civil work attend. Our next training is in August, right after the election, so that we can get some of the new guys that have just gotten elected in, and then in January, they'll be trained officially for 1 week, and that takes place in Tucson. One of the things I believe in is justice and mercy. Obviously, and if you're in law enforcement, you believe in justice. I also believe in mercy. That's why I give 72 hours on the assets to come up with the money. And so it kind of works like this. I have shown up to doors where I'm there to do an eviction, and the fight is on right at the door. We're swinging at each other. They're going to go in handcuffs. There's a whole lot of justice done right there and a very little mercy. But for the most part, I always practice that neither can rob the other one. And to explain this, I just want to tell you a quick experience that I had. I'm especially partial to veterans who are jammed up. I can usually tell a veteran right away whether they've been retired for a long time or if they're active duty right now. So I was sent to go do an eviction in an apartment complex. The guy answered the door. He obviously had some serious health issues when he answered the door. Nobody in the apartment complex had seen him. His rent had been paid 1 year in advance. And so he never bothered them, they never bothered him. And then the rent stopped and it ran out, and they went to him and left notices, pay your rent, not be there. So I noticed two things. He is in some serious health issues, and he had a cat that weighed like almost 25 pounds. It looked like a mountain lion to me. It was huge. And I knew that he was not eating what he should be eating. I quickly learned through asking him some questions that he had to mention. I couldn't figure out how the food was getting there, and he couldn't tell me how he got the food there. And he didn't drive. Didn't have a driver's license. And the day that I was there, he said, "Well, I have a driver's license, but it's not any good. If the driver's license is no good, there's cold cuts through it." He showed it to me, and I learned the very day that I was there was his birthday. And I said, "Today's your birthday." And he was totally surprised. He said, "It is." I said, "Yeah, so happy birthday." And as he was fumbling through his wallet, he pulled out a VA card, so I knew he was a veteran as well. And I asked him if he'd been to the VA hospital recently. No. So I went back to the property manager and said, one, I have the ability to basically delay an eviction. I can delay anything that I've been sent to do. And I don't normally slam the brakes on anything that I do, but I have done it over the last 7 years. I told her, with your permission, we're going to fill out the paperwork. It will be as if we evicted him. We're going to shelter him in place until I can figure out, we get him to the VA, we find relatives, we're going to do something. I'm not cutting loose on the street because I'm commanded basically to remove him. What happens after that point, that's their problem. I don't look at it that way ever, and especially with a veteran. I got her to agree. We posted it. I'm sheltering him in place. I call a good friend of mine who does genealogy, and I said, "You've done this for me in the past. Instead of finding dead people, I need you to find me a live person." And she said, "That's not how it works." I said, "I need you to find me a live relative to this person, and I need it like in the next 2 hours." About 4 hours later, I've already contacted the VA. And like I said, he had some serious medical issues that were just visible to me. I'm not a doctor, but I could tell you got some serious issues. Within 4 hours, the VA was going to send somebody out there to pick him up. They were going to be able to get him the medical care. I knew where his ex-wife, her name, a phone number, and where she lived in Wisconsin. And he'd been divorced for more than 20 years. I called her. I told her, "Does he have any living relatives?" And she said, "No. He doesn't have any children. He doesn't have anything. He had me, and we got divorced." And I told her what was happening. And she said, "That's terrible. I feel horrible for him." I said, "Would you?" And he has dementia. He's the kindest person. He's gentle. She said, "Well, that's not the way he was when he was with me." I said, "Trust me, he's not going to remember who you are. I need somebody who can take care of him." And she agreed to take care of him, flew down here to pick him up after the VA was done treating him, and then was able to get him back there so he could get more treatment. That lady is a saint. The cat, that left me with the cat. And so I called, because the carpet cleaning business, and we had so many clients, I did a lot of cleaning in Pebble Creek. And they have a a cat and dog rescue down there, and I cleaned for the lady who ran that. And I said, I have this cat. I need to take it somewhere where they're not going to kill the cat. And he can't take it because the VA wouldn't allow it, and the ex-wife didn't want the cat. She said, well, all right, bring it down. And so she agreed. I brought it down there, and I had it in, he had a cat carrier that the cat barely fit in. When I zipped it up, top to bottom, front to the back, the cat was so big, it was so heavy. Put it in my car, drove it down there. And we let him loose in a cage that she has. It'd be almost like if you were to put babies in there, like a crib, but it's made for cats. It has a dome on the top, and we put the cat in there. He was so, I told her that it's just so gentle. And sure enough, she said, this cat needs to go on like Jenny Crib for cats. It's so big. And I said, I couldn't find food for him. I could find food for the cat. I still can't understand how it got delivered, who delivered it, how it got there. The ex-wife didn't know. So anyway, they renamed the cat Constable Blake, and it was adopted out about 2 or 3 days later because it was just so gentle. And that person to this day still has the cat. Let's see. If anybody knows, my son and I have a 10-year-old son. Actually, I have 6 children, but I finally figured out where they come from. So my 10-year-old son and I are replacing worn out flags. I don't think we would ever find any here in this community, but in Sun City West and other communities I work in, it's not uncommon to run into somebody. We are replacing worn out flags. We did it for Veterans Day, 4th of July, Flag Day, anything that has to do where you're going to put your flag out. If you know somebody or if you have a flag, we got them donated by VFW. We even, all the flags that we had, we went and had them retired. And both my 5-year-old and my 10-year-old got to participate in that, where they removed the grommets and got to throw them into the fire. It was really cool. Please let me know, because we have probably 50 flags in the car right now. We are actually going out tomorrow to replace ones that we already know. We have appointments set up to go and replace their flag. In closing, one of the flags that we replaced was for a veteran, and he did not have the ability or the agility to replace his flag, which was actually up on a pole on his garage, and the thing was just completely shredded. And when we knocked on the door, he was told that we would be there. He never thought we would show up. I bring my son. We attempted to fold the flag, and shredded it. Just would not fold very well for us. I taught my son how to professionally fold a flag, and he was there and he was crying. He just could not believe that somebody was willing to do that for him. And he was telling my son about the experiences that he had in the war. It was really cool. I thought we could replace the flag. We had it all set up in this little route. I figured every 12 to 13 minutes we could replace the flag, get to the next stop, get to the next one. That's how close his houses were. That stop was almost an hour long. He invited us in the house, giving us things to drink. And I told him, we're waiting behind, we gotta get going. But cool experience. Constable served Arizona with a proud tradition of justice. And I will continue that proud tradition of justice. And I look forward to building a safer community together with you. Hopefully I win this next election, which is in August. I do have an opponent. And I'm just hoping that I have out-marketed him. After 30 years of owning my car business, I've learned a few things about marketing. So I hope I out-market. We'll start the presentation. This is active shooter. They also call it an active attack event because, and we'll do the fast one that only takes 20 minutes. The other presentation is much more in depth, and it takes about an hour and a half to get through it. They changed the word active shooter to actor attack event because in the past, they've analyzed all these events and they learned that not all of these people are using a gun. Sometimes they use a knife, and many times they use a vehicle. You'll remember that in New York, and I'll talk about this, I never named the person, and will sometimes name the victims, but never will I give the glory or the benefit to the person. I'll name the event. But where they rented a Home Depot truck and loaded it up and drove it into a crowd of people. That's when they decided to change this to an active attack event in case they're not using a gun. But basically the crux of this whole thing is avoid, deny, and defend. And because I'm speaking to a group of people who have firearms, may have firearms on them, if they were involved in an active attack event, I will leave it up to you to decide after we've gone through the steps, if you decide to engage yourself in a firefight, or if you're going to help others that are going to be able to get out of the building, because the first step is avoid. I know, and my family knows, that if we're involved in a situation that is an active attack, that I'm going to get them to safety first. That is my number one concern. And everybody that is within my reach, I'm going to get them to safety first. My family also knows, because I have to live in the community that I work in, that it is not uncommon for me to run into somebody that I may have had what I call an event with, no matter what it is. Maybe I've arrested them, maybe I've evicted them. And if I usually try to go out and I don't look like the constable, I sometimes wear a hat, sometimes I wear sunglasses so that people don't recognize me. But we were at the movie theater about 2.5, 3 years ago before COVID, and a person walked up to me and I knew them, and they said, I know you from somewhere. And I knew it had ended badly with them, and I said, no, I don't know you. And they said, no, I know you from somewhere. Did we work together? No. And from the show that you may have watched, it's filmed in Canada, they say the word Sierra. And that means go ahead and it's a sharpshooter show. Sierra means that they're good to go. And that's what my kids had come up with, that if I was going to possibly be engaged in something that would be bad, if they heard the word Sierra, they know they're to walk away with mom or the oldest kid that they're with. Walk away and get away from me, because this may end up badly. So you're going to. This is a real short clip. Well, it's 5 minutes, and it kind of goes through everything that we're going to talk about.
It may feel like just another day at the office, but occasionally life feels more like an action movie than reality.
Can everybody hear it?
Turn it up a little more.
The authorities are working hard to protect you and to protect our public spaces. But sometimes bad people do bad things. Their motivations are different. The warning signs may vary, but the devastating effects are the same. And unfortunately, you need to be prepared for the worst. If you were ever to find yourself in the middle of an active shooter event, your survival may depend on whether or not you have a plan. The plan doesn't have to be complicated. There are 3 things you could do that make a difference: run, hide, fight. First and foremost, if you can get out, do it. Always try and escape or evacuate, even when others insist on staying. Encourage others to leave with you, but don't let them slow you down with indecision. Remember what's important, you, not your stuff. Leave your belongings behind and try to find a way to get out safely. Trying to get yourself out of harm's way needs to be your #1 priority. Once you're out of the line of fire, try to prevent others from walking into the danger zone and call 911. If you can't get out safely, you need to find a place to hide. Act as quickly and quietly. Try to secure your hiding place the best you can. Turn out lights, and if possible, remember to lock doors. Silence your ringer and vibration mode on your cell phone. And if you can't find a safe room or closet, try to conceal yourself behind large objects that may protect you. Do your best to remain quiet and calm. As a last resort, if your life is at risk, whether you are alone or working together as a group, fight. Act with aggression. Improvise weapons. Disarm. And commit to taking the shooter down, no matter what. Try to be aware of your environment. Always have an exit plan. Know that in an incident like this, victims are generally chosen randomly. The event is unpredictable and may evolve quickly. The first responders on the scene are not there to evacuate or attend to the injured. They are well trained and are there to stop the shooter. Your actions can make a difference for your safety and survival. Be aware and be prepared. And if you find yourself facing an active shooter, there are 3 key things you need to remember to survive. Run, hide, fight.
So the Department of Homeland Security did that run, hide, fight. Is now avoid, deny, defend, is because hiding, if you're just simply going to hide, is not going to work. You need to try to deny access to wherever you're at. Everything you do matters, and what you're doing is you're buying time for law enforcement to get there, especially if you don't have a weapon. Is there anybody in here that's retired law enforcement? Okay, so now everyone has been trained on what to do in an active shooter situation. And so when I read about what happened in like Texas, with the rate response to getting law enforcement in there, it just shouldn't happen. It used to be we would stage up for 4 people to show, so you can get in a diamond pattern, so you can watch all the directions. And now they've changed that training that the first law enforcement person goes in It's on the radio, lets everybody know that they're in there, what they're wearing, what they look like. They go in, it's basically just to stop the killing. Just like that video says, we're not gonna attend to any wounded. If there's another person in there and they're with me and we're trying to find that shooter, even if it's a person that I've worked with, like my deputy constable, and I've known him for years, if he gets shot, I'm to leave it and continue to stop the killing. I don't name them. You'll notice that during the presentation, I'll never say the names of any of the shooters. This is intentional. We're just going to look into some of the research into active shooter, active attack events. The definition is basically attempted mass murder. That's what they're trying to accomplish. The attacker, this is done with a lot of research. No set profile range age from young to senior citizens. Most are male, but some have been females that come from all races. They have an avenger mindset, deliberate, focused, and detached. Some broadcast their intentions by posting on social media, and many of them will kill themselves once they're confronted with law enforcement. The day that I had flown to Mississippi is where I learned about this class to be taught and how to teach this class. And the instructor was up there teaching the class, and there was an active shooter event in California that involved a female, and he had just gone through, like, mostly male. This is the kind of weapon they're going to use. This is this. Literally, his phone beeped. He looked down. Active shooter event. It's female. It didn't fit the profile at all. Just thought that was very odd. This is going to show, this starts back almost 10 years. Gun is in yellow, knife is in red, car is in blue. You see the bigger dot is +4, or the smaller dot is less than 4.
Are victims the ones that died or just the ones that were shot?
Victims dead.
So that's 10 years, you said?
No, it goes back, I think, 17 years. Yeah, 17. And now, from 17 to now, it would be huge because the amount of events that have taken place. Most people want to say that the attacks have been in schools. That's not true. War attacks have happened in business-related places than anywhere else. The connection from the attacker to the victim. This is going to talk about the number of deaths equal 2 factors: target availability and police response. So what this class hopefully will help to take away the targets. 3 minutes is what they're saying it takes to get police there in an active shooter situation. Everything is dropped in law enforcement. If you were writing a speeding ticket and that call comes out, you just drive away. Just drive away, drive to that location where the shooting is. 3 minutes is a very fast response. Being in law enforcement, I don't want to knock that, but that's an incredibly fast response time. It's probably somewhere in the 5 minute to 9 minute range to get people there. 3 stages of disaster response. This was done by an author named Ripley, and she identified 3 phases of process that everybody goes through during these kind of events. Denial, deliberation, and decisive movement. So we'll go over the human brain and the lizard brain. Has anybody ever, besides somebody in law enforcement, had somebody pull a gun on them, been in a robbery, been in shooting? It's very different when the gun is pointed at you, or somebody tells you they're going to kill you after having gone through that. It totally will change your mind. You think, well, this is what I would do. But when your brain is put under that much stress, some of the things that we talk about, say, yeah, I've been there, I've had that happen. It's amazing the amount of stress when the bullets are headed your direction. What happens? So the human brain is reflective. It's going to be thinking. It's going to be rational. And it's going to be slow. Rational, if we were in the hour and 20-minute class, talks about people who survived thought that when they heard gunshots, that it was fireworks or firecrackers or just loud noises. Because they thought, who would be shooting here? Lizard brain, reflexive, it's a reacting brain, it's fixed, and it's fast, it just happens. In this next video, you're going to see how long it takes the mother to remove the child from the stroller that he's in, even though she's probably done this hundreds of times. But it goes to show you what happens when your mind is placed under so much stress just to do the simplest thing. What happens? Just to set this up, this is a grocery store where a shooter's walked in and he is shooting. Okay, it takes the mother 10 seconds to remove her child, which she does dozens of times a day. 10 seconds can be a lifetime with a focused, aggressive attacker, no matter what weapon system he's using or she's using. You can see panic people bouncing into each other, knocking others over. Some people decide to hide in plain sight. So we're going to watch this video again, and then basically don't watch the mother, watch everybody else. So for me, whenever I walk into a store or a building, I'm always looking for where the exit is. If an active shooter starts, where am I going to go? I went furniture shopping with my 5-year-old, and we did that on Sunday after church. And that was the first thing when I walked in that building. What am I going to do with him? because he had never been there with me, and where would I go if somebody decides that they're gonna start shooting at the very good furniture store? Deliberation. So keep your human brain running as long as you can. And these techniques will help you to do it. So you got to tell yourself to calm down. Breathe slowly through your nose. Breathe out slowly through your mouth. And this will help slow your heart rate down. You're going to be scared, but you need to turn that into a more useful emotion like anger. Denial. Don't deny. If you hear gunshots, go straight to the deliberation phase. So you're going to go to, like it says, often we hear that after an event, a victim or an eyewitness statement sounded like fireworks. Ask yourself how often you hear fireworks at a store, Walmart, Home Depot, Lowe's, the furniture store you're at. Also understand that various barriers can muffle the gun sound. And I am going to scare people in some presentations. When I get to the next slide, a very loud gun sound goes off.
Don't.
Yeah, no,
Not here.
it should be silent. It will get people literally to jump right out of their seat. Does anybody know who this is? This is the Beatons. They were at the Route 91 Harvest Festival in Las Vegas 2 hours before the terror ensued here. They were sharing on Facebook and smiling that they were at the Country Music Festival. They initially mistook the gunfire for fireworks until a bullet brushed past Lori's shoulder. Jack told her that he didn't think it was fireworks. They threw themselves onto the ground there, and you know that that was just a complete melee coming out of that hotel room. He threw himself right on top of her and told her that he loved her. More on that, he was shot and killed. They emptied it out. He had been taken to the hospital. He was already dead. I believe it took her 6 hours to find her husband, to learn that he was dead. He saved her life. Deliberation. So avoid equals run. Deny is hide or a barricade. Defend is fight. So that if you're in a building and you don't have a weapon, like in here, we're going to be, when I walked in, I'm looking, there's no exit door. We're going to have to secure that door. We're going to pile up as much stuff as we can in front of that door, and then everybody's going to hopefully be grabbing a chair, a book or something, so if that door does come open, we're going to put stuff that direction. This is kind of the basic strategy, but sometimes, you're going to very quickly, if you can't avoid it, you may have to deny. If you can't deny because they're right there at the door, you may have to go right into fight, and your mind just needs to be thinking that very quickly. No matter what, eventually people get placed under enough stress that their human brain will shut down. One of the cool things about your human brain is that you can use it to program your lizard brain before. Then your lizard brain does a lot better under stress. Scripting means if you're thinking like, if then I would do this. Practicing reinforces this plan. And like I said, I was just doing this when you enter any building, you're going to look for the exits and what you would do if something happened. And when you do that, it's almost just natural. The minute I walked in this building, because I've never been here, where's the exit? Where are people congregated? Where would I go? Avoid, run, leave the area as soon as possible. Get as many people to go with you. You'll find that some people will literally just pass out on the floor. they're going to decide to hide in plain sight and just lay down as if they had been shot. Know your exits and call 911. We know that from playing dead doesn't work with college shooting on the East Coast, where they had the shooter was going room to room and opening the door and shooting people. He was literally shooting people who had already been on the floor. Here at that point, he was just shooting them again. The police officer, I used to be able to say the most recently, the one that was shot out in public, Tyler Moldovan, you know him, he's Phoenix PD. He was incapacitated with the first shot. He got shot 7 more times because the guy came up and just continued to shoot at him. Now, Tyler wasn't playing dead, he was literally incapacitated at the first shot. So don't limit yourself to doors. In this, you can see that there are people that are hiding right by the ladder. Consider secondary exits. They could go up that ladder. They could go out that door, assuming it's not chained shut, and it shouldn't be. There's a panic bar on it. But if you're going to hide in plain sight, not a very good idea. Lock the door if you can. Lights out of sight. A simple locked door can prevent most shooters unless they're going to shoot the lock out. We'll keep them right out of the room. They're like water. They're going to follow the path of least resistance. And I can't stress locking the door enough after watching video after video after video where people could have locked the door and they didn't. In the longer version of this, you just wonder what the heck, but your mind is under so much stress. Barricade, heavier is better, more is better. Door stop is good. If you can find a door stop, kick it down. The ones that are on the back of the door, kick it down. The ones that are in the wedge shape, put it on the door after it's closed. Makes it incredibly hard to open the door. On the doors like that one right there, if you're on the other side of that door and you want to stop somebody from being able to open that door, when those two arms, they come together, right now they're outstretched because the door is open. When they come together like this, if you have a tie on or a bolo tie, you can take that, wrap that around that as tight as you can get it, and that door will not open even if you can't lock it. They can't get it open. The door just simply will not open. So this is some ideas on outward opening doors: rope, tension sleeve, a belt, a tie. Oh, there's the example right there. Positioning. So best to be on both sides of the door if they're going to walk through. Hopefully you've got more people on either side. Grab the gun. Shift your emotions from fear to anger. Even if you have a gun, I've watched a study that they put out where they filmed 100 officers doing a traffic stop. And this was in a training, this was an exercise. They were using sim guns. Everybody had sim guns. And they were doing a simple traffic stop where the driver of the vehicle was to shoot them as fast as he could. And then they were just checking to see if he was safely going up to the vehicle. 98 of the 100 cops got shot with the same gun, except for 2. It's because they've been on SWAT. And instead of them backing up and taking the time to pull their own gun out, they grabbed the driver's gun and saved them. And I've always thought about that in every situation I'm in, because sometimes I'm dealing with somebody who already has a gun, it's over carrying, it's underneath their shirt. I can ask them, can I have that for my safety? Can I unload that? I'll give it back to you. And if they say no, they have every right to say no, and then I can get back up there, and now there's more eyes on this person. But I always think, am I gonna take the time to pull my gun, or am I gonna take time to control his? Stand near the door, not across the room, you're just a target at that point. If you're close, you have a chance to fight, get a hold of the gun, fight for your life. This isn't a fair fight. Do whatever it takes to win. Shift your emotions from fear to anger, and then channel this anger to focus on your aggression solely on your survival.
So, well, let me ask you, Scott. I mean, many of our members have concealed weapons, they take them with them all the time. What would they do in these situations? Because we've been told by some attorneys, unless you physically feel you're going to get killed, you can't shoot someone.
And I would agree with that statement. I would say you're gonna avoid, you're gonna try to get as many people to go out. And I say that because if you decide to engage yourself, you are responsible for that bullet the minute it leaves your gun to wherever it stops. If it stops in a bad place, somebody who's innocent, just kill an innocent person. You've got to decide when, as a gun owner, you're going to engage. Mine would be at the end. I'm going to try to save as many people as I can first, and then I'm going to go and engage that person in my immediate area. I'm not going to empty that building out. If my family is there, take care of them first. Once they're safe, then I'm going to go engage because I've been trained in it. But you have to decide for yourself. I can't answer that.
So if someone does engage and they're shooting at the shooter, but they hit somebody else, they'd be responsible for that other person.
This is the Virginia Tech. This is the one I talked about where he went room to room and people were hiding. Shooting started, and so these are the different rooms. I usually have a pointer, but in room 206, killed is in red, shot is in yellow. And that shooter just basically went room to room with Virginia Tech. Back up one so you can see that. So the ones that were the X, they barricaded the door. Now, granted, they had a lot of more time than room 211 and 206, but they barricaded the door. Everybody survived. 204, they were going out and opening and getting out into the yard. 1 dead, 4 injured. Christina Anderson, I can't remember if we played a video about her, but she played dead and was shot a total of 3 times. In the longer video, it actually explained, she actually is interviewed and talks about that shooting. Surroundings, let's look at the room we're in, take 2 minutes, avoid, deny, and defend. There's no way to get out that way. I'm assuming that that opens up to another, where they can open up the other room. That is possibly an exit. The first thing we would do is we would just try to deny access to that door and get away from the window in case he decides to shoot. Attack starts, primary exits, yes, avoid. No primary exits, we're going to deny access to the room. Other exits, yes, we're going to go back to avoid. No, we're going to defend. When the police arrive, follow law enforcement commands. You're going to want to show the palm of your hands because sometimes We don't know if a shooter or shooters are going out because they haven't killed themselves or we haven't shot them. Don't move unless you're told to. And remember that we're under as much stress as you are. Even though we've been trained, there's a huge amount of stress. We're there to stop the killing, stop the dying, and then eventually evacuate the injured. This is a real fast clip, and we're almost at the end. Hang up your phone too. Don't have your phone out so we don't mistake it for a weapon. Medical EMS will not ever enter the scene until it's safe. This could take hours. I always recommend that you get trained. Stop the Bleed is a cool class. Honor Health will put that on for you. It's free. They have a grant that's available. They cannot teach that class. So always you're going to apply firm pressure to a wound. Don't take that pressure. Taking your shirt off and that's on there. Don't take that off and put a fresh one on. You're going to keep putting it on and putting it on. Tourniquet, mark the forehead, mark on the person's forehead, and a T so that everybody knows that there's a tourniquet on there at the time that it was applied. If you can, lipstick, a magic marker, whatever you've got. If anything, their blood. To put that on there. So the 3 stages: denial, don't deny, and don't delay. Go straight to deliberation. Quickly, I'm going to avoid, deny, defend. A decisive moment, put your plan into action. Avoid if you can't, I will deny. And if I can't, I will defend. This is one of the victims. So I have a lot of teachers in my family, so it's hard for me to get through this. She basically called the children in her class, her kids. And when the shooter came into the school, she had to shield for them. It saves many of their lives. This is the one we do when I do schools. This is Jason Seaman. He was shot 3 times by the gunman. Don't name them. The victims. Heroes that we remember. Questions? Comments? Concerns?
Oh, nicely done. Thank you.
I can't stress enough that I can't tell you whether you're going to engage that person. That's I'm not teaching this to a room. I'm probably scary. But one thing I couldn't stress enough is that you are responsible for that. That bullet in the main could be that shot.
What if you find yourself alone with the shooter though? No, and you're carrying. Well, you see him walking down the aisle, but he's not pointing the gun at you.
not pointing the gun. at
Yeah.
anybody, But he's walking in an aisle.
And you know he's just shot somebody.
You have to decide. Because if you miss, that bullet's gonna go back to whatever shelving that there is. You really, I don't wanna tell you what to do. You have to decide whether you're gonna use that person or not.
So people have been prosecuted for being trying to save others.
I would assume so, yes, because you are responsible. You, at some point, you're gonna be responsible for this that shot. You could be sued, absolutely.
Okay, well, let's thank Scott Blake for a nice presentation. Thank you very much.